intensive. Okay, so before I go into start talking about the subject for today, I'm going to try to do like a fast once over. It's always my goal on Monday to like lay everything out on the table, even if we don't get into it very deeply, so at least you kind of know what the week's agenda is. But before that, let's talk about the project. It is time. All right, so this is what I put out on Sakai for the actual project deliverable, and then there's a secondary assignment, which is the one that you're going to need to address this week, beginning of next week, which is just to kind of tell me what you're going to do, what your plan is for the project. All right, so create a small but complete simulation, either as a video game or a tiny training application. A complete simulation should have at minimum a title screen and scoring system, but ideally should have instructions or a tutorial and an end of game screen as well. Greater usability, complexity, realism, and aesthetics will result in more credit. You'll be graded on the elements below. Okay, so those would be, okay, you make this application and number one, you give me a written description of it. Not a big writing project. In fact, I don't want more than 2 pages of text, not counting the images. I also want some images. I want a list of the technologies that you actually use in your project. So depending on what you're trying to do or just time limitations, it won't be possible to incorporate every single thing we did the entire quarter, right? So what stuff are you actually incorporating? Because, it's occasionally the case that I miss things. I do try to be careful, but, a lot of the times making a good environment actually involves hiding how things are happening, right? So this is the opportunity to tout everything that you've done in terms of the topics that we covered. Describe any aspects of the work that were particularly complicated or otherwise challenging, okay? It's not always intuitive. I mean, one of the whole purposes of a class like this is to develop your own intuition about what things are likely to be time sinks and which things are not, right? That's one of the things that's good. That's good job background information for you guys going forward. But no one's perfect at that, okay? And in particular, every year the software is constantly changing underfoot. Oh, did you notice a new version came out of Unity, right? Okay. Speaking of which. All right, so stuff that was fine before, all of a sudden there's a problem. I won't necessarily know about that. I would like to know if you lost a week of work because something weird was going on. I may not know about that thing. So please make mention of that in your document. Also, give me links or citations for art assets that you use, code libraries that you use. And also at least 2 screenshots, just so if I'm looking at your doc, a month or 2 from now, I remember, visual screen, the screenshots really help bring it back for me. I can remember what it was I saw, okay, without actually firing up the application, which is a whole other level of involvement. Okay. Secondly, what I'm going to ask you to do is to do a demonstration for the class. You can use PowerPoint if you want to, but I'm not expecting any kind of super long or detailed presentation, but I do expect you to come up, plug into the podium, fire up your application, and do a playthrough if your thing's really long. Okay, maybe a partial playthrough, and talk us through what it is you accomplished, and also mention major problems. Basically, make us all smart about both what you were able to achieve and maybe what you thought was going to achieve, but it turns out that was a hill too high to climb. So we all know that. You can maybe take that. I will take that as knowledge to improve the class going forward, and everyone else can take it as, okay, this is the state of the art right now. Last, and this is the first time I've done this, but I would like you to actually turn in a build of your application. I haven't had you build your application. I haven't required it. Some of you are building it routinely. Some of you maybe didn't do it since the tutorial, but it's pretty easy to do. Ideally, I'd like a Windows build. Okay, so it is possible to cross-build. How many of you use Macs? 2 of you. Okay, it is possible to cross-build, but just in case you can't, and I would prefer that, but in case you can't, like in mine, that laptop is old. I've been using it for 4 years. It is very full of stuff, and you have to download a bunch. You don't just cross-build by asking for it. It will say, okay, well, you didn't install the libraries for that other thing, so you have to go back through the install and just say, okay, I want to be able to build for Windows. I want to be able to build for Linux, whatever. And every checkbox you put in adds substantially to the size of the installation, at least historically it has. I don't actually know what the situation is now. So I'm giving you flexibility. Okay, so do try to build it. Do try to turn it in via Sakai, but if your file size gets humongous, we also have a Dropbox NPS version of Dropbox there, NPS box, that you could use. Of course, I'll need permission to actually access that if you want to turn it in that way. Okay, and yeah, so we'll see how this works. But I think it will be good. I mean, some of you asked me at the beginning of this quarter, hey, could we like what kind of stuff do you actually do in this passage? Is there something we can actually see? No, because we haven't turned things in the past because it's kind of a pain because it's a big, large amount of data, because it will age, it won't last forever either. But now we'll try, and this way, when other faculty also sometimes ask me this, and when the next group of students is facing me and they say, can you give us any idea what kind of things we can produce at the beginning of the quarter, I can say, sure, go install these couple of great examples, and you can see what we've done in the past. Okay. Okay. Questions about that? All right. You'll have, basically 2 weeks to work on it full time. Maybe even more if the third. I don't think the third lab is. I think the lab on the GUI, which will also be one of the two. We've got 2 labs yet to do. There'll be a terrain one for this week. There'll be one on GUI issues, but it's not super involved. It's just basically, can you bring up canvases? Can you toggle between them in a way that convinces me, yeah, you could make a tutorial. You could make a splash screen, that sort of thing. So if you count that as not a full week's worth of lab, maybe you get a little more than 2 weeks, but roughly that's the time frame. And I'm asking for them to be done the last Friday of class. So we'll use that time for debriefing. That'll give us 2 hours. We still have the Monday in reserve the next week. If we get it all done on Friday, we won't have to be here on Monday, but if someone's behind or if we literally can't fit anybody in the 2 hours, it depends on how much you want to say when you do your demo, then we'll just push the rest to Monday. Yeah, that's the idea. Questions? All right. The assignment that's due right quick is obviously not the final project, but rather the prospectus. Not a lot here. But I just want a brief description of what you hope to show in your final project, referring you to the assignment I just talked about. And if you're doing an FPS shooter game, we're kind of funneling you down. We can't. It's a short, it's a short course. The quarters are quick. We can't support every possible graphical application that's even relevant to modeling and simulation. That's never going to happen in this course. So we're kind of funneling you toward an FPS shooter game. So if that's what you're doing, then one kind of brief paragraph, or just kind of say what kind of things you hope to have in there. That should be plenty of space. However, if you wanted to do something else, again, if you want something because you want to use it for a project for another class, or you want to use it to kind of prototype ahead for your thesis, or something like that, that's not a terrible idea. We don't have a lot of opportunity in the way the curriculum is now to kind of work a little bit ahead like that. So I'll try to support you if I can. But if that's the case, then I really need, it's really for that theoretical person's benefit that I really need this done so I can vet it up front. And we can have a discussion up front about feasibility, and also, if you're trying to do something particular, it may be the case that very few of the technologies that we covered this quarter are actually needed for your application. Okay, if that's the case, then that might put me in a bind in terms of grading you versus the other applications. And if that's the case, you want to hear about that up front, and we can think about how to, if it's possible to mitigate that or whatever. Anyway, we'll have the discussions up front rather than you getting surprised on the back end. We all agree that's a better way to do things. Okay, reasonable? Okay, I want this by Wednesday so that worst case Thursday we could have some discussions about it. If I need to pull any of you aside and get more details. Good? Okay. All right, fantastic. Good. So now let's talk about this wonderful thing called terrain, and it is a pretty wonderful thing. In Unity, they've done a lot of work to make this possible. Again, most of this hour is going to be on the level of buttonology, which is not really where I want to be. We don't really, and this is an area where there's a lot of really cool tech, algorithms, and data structures out there that make this stuff possible. We really, I'm not even going to get into that at the hand-waving level. But suffice it to say, let's say a few of the essential details. Okay, what's special about this stuff? We're going to be doing terrain, so that is basically just a large mesh that goes in there. Okay, so why is it different from every other kind of mesh? Well, because terrains are kind of different. They're basically laid out in X and Y. No matter where the user is, he can't see all elements of the terrain equally well, right? So all these cool algorithms and data structures, which will remain unnamed because we don't have time to go there, but what they are leveraging is exactly that fact. That, yeah, the user is going to need a whole lot of detail right around where he is. Okay, if he's up in a plane, okay, the right around where he is might be a little bigger, but then again, if you're up on a plane, you're kind of not close to anything, okay, down on the ground. So that's what they use to go, and what they do is they actually take like all those polygons, which are really like way too many for, if you do a large terrain, it's way too many to put up at a decent frame rate. And what they essentially do is they kind of cheat. They go far out, and where there were a whole lot of triangles, they basically just kind of approximate them with very few triangles. And they do it dynamically, so that as you walk over to that faraway hill that basically just got, it was beautiful and detailed when you modeled it, but the thing just, because you're far away from it, it's really just a pamp kind of a thing, because, the algorithms know you're not really going to be able to tell. But as you get up close to it, of course, it has to switch down into the more detailed model. And in fact, it does it. It's not even just, we've got a coarse model and a detailed model. Wow, that's already complicated. Yeah, it's much more complicated than that. It's actually a continuous process where the closer you get, the more the model gets refined until at the very limit, when your eye gets right up close to it, it's exactly what you built in your Blender or what actually got it imported for your terrain. So that's what's going on there. Same deal with the foliage, right? So you could bring in a tree. If you just go and bring any tree that you find out on the web into Unity, you can do that. But if it's not a speed tree asset, the speed tree is the library that the high-tech, cool library Unity incorporates. It's independent of Unity. Other graphics environments also use it. Then it will not have the capability to basically do the same trick for trees that it does with terrain. Namely, when you're further away, it will basically take details out and make it so your computer can handle a lot more trees before it goes belly up. Eventually it'll go belly up, no matter how good. We're all sitting here with laptops. Okay, none of us are going to go all that far into making a really large and dense forest. Okay, but the point is, we want more. We'd like to do bigger terrains. We'd like to have more foliage, so that isn't the limiting factor in terms of what kinds of geotypical environments we could model in our simulations. Okay, so these technologies are important. Okay, so that's the spiel about what I'm not going to tell you, really. Okay, but at least to give you some clue as to what's out there and what's to learn. There was a day when we can go more into those things, but take like another graphics course. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up a new project. Okay, I don't have an example project for you, so we're going to build up from zero, because all these projects, this is where things start getting big. So I'm going to start up an empty project. This is the new version of Unity. I have already done a little bit with it, so I don't think it's going to bite me, but we'll see. Now, the first thing I'm going to do in my empty project is I'm going to bring in the standard assets. Now, I do that all the time, so it's going to be like really easy for me. But if you don't usually do it, or if you rely on my example projects to do that for you, you might want to get that started. So go to the asset store, standard assets. They come from Unity, okay, and just bring the whole thing in, because we're going to. This would be the week where we probably are going to use most, all the big heavyweight ones, which I usually like to cut out to make things small. We can't do that because we need those heavyweight assets this week.
Are the standard assets from the Unity store, is it like an updated version from what we had been using previously?
I don't know how often they update it.
So you just ruined it for me. I thought you made all those standard assets. Just crush my will back here.
Not me. No, I try to avoid doing that. Anything you make software-wise, you've got to maintain. So it's like a lifetime commitment. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do what I told you to do. Let's go and go to the asset store. So I've got it pre-cached, so it's going to look like I'm downloading it instantly, I think, but I'm certainly not. Let's see, standard assets. And if you have downloaded it before and it hasn't changed, good chance you're going to get a fast sudo download too. You'll just pull it from a local cache. Standard assets. Here we are. Okay, these things, Unity standard assets. If you've ever done it before, it's going to say just go right to import rather than download. And if the version's changed, it should be smart and make you download it again. This is about 167 megabytes, and this isn't even everything that we'll really need for this unit. But there's some of the stuff, mainly the skyboxes. Those things are just getting ridiculous these days in size. So you're on your own with that. I'll show you what I do. Like the skybox library I like is like twice the size of the standard assets. But it's got a lot of skyboxes in it, you know, the fluffy clouds, stars in the sky, that kind of thing. We'll get to that later in the week. It's very, a lot of this stuff this is really not very, not super demanding, I think, especially not the skyboxes. But even the whole week, there's a lot of little things to know. Yeah, like I said, a lot of buttonology, but nothing super deep. I don't think you'll be confused. Okay, so this process seems substantially longer, the new version. I wonder what's going on. Okay, so as soon as this thing is done, what we're going to do is we're going to create an actual terrain object. Now again, in Unity, just to be clear, so this, if you go into Blender and make a terrain, which you can totally do, and then just import it as a mesh, it's not going to be a terrain object. It's going to be a normal mesh. All the black magic of smoothing and saving on polygons when things are far away, you're not going to get that. Now, if your mesh is very small, it won't matter. It's going to be fine anyway. If you want to push it and you want your terrains to be as big as you can do in the technology given the computing platform, it's going to matter a lot. Wow. All right. Never fear. We'll all get there. All right. So once you're done through that bit of pain, then you can go up, and the way you build a terrain, there's a couple different ways. Well, basically, it always starts with just plunking one down, right? So we can go in here, game object, 3D object, terrain. Okay. Now already, this terrain has a lot of vertices in it. I don't know. Can you actually tell? Instead of shaded, I say shaded wireframe. My laptop is struggling. It doesn't even want to frame the object. I'm double clicking it. It's not. Okay, I think it's got a lot more verts than it's letting on. I'd be surprised if that's all we have. I don't think that could be true. All right, well, it could be that. That's just the cost that we pay. So I'll turn that off. Okay, if we go and oh, right. Yeah, we can turn it off, but yeah, there's pros and cons to that too. Real time. No, wait.
Is this the auto generator?
Where is it? There it is. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's better. Let's just for fun. Let's see if we can. Yeah, it still looks very coarse. I don't believe it, and I think you'll see right away when we start messing with it that it's actually not that coarse. Okay. Now the first thing is I think this is. So I learned this morning. So I used to be able to do this. That's a square kilometer train. Which, it's not very much for things military, but to mess around on a laptop, that's already probably too big for me. I don't want to deal with it, especially once I actually start doing stuff. So putting objects on top of the train in addition to the train. So if I go in here, if you click on the gear, there should be a way. Okay, so here we go. Width and length, detail resolution. I ought to be able to mess with all those things. I think I'm just going to, let me just try halving it. Okay, so if I have it, train is square, that's basically going to reduce the computational effort by a quarter, down to a quarter of what it was. So here we go. You may reduce by setting the detail resolution per patch as high as possible. All right. Let's go. 500 by 500, and then detail resolution 512. All right, we'll see. That might be better. Should be better. All right, terrain. Yeah, but you wouldn't know it, right? Unless your terrain literally is as flat as a pancake. In which case, please just put down a quad or a plane, and don't even mess with a terrain type of object. Okay. Well, even in that case, there actually are reasons to use the terrain. As you'll see, there's more magic to it than I've let on so far. It's not only the optimizations for making the computer render fewer triangles. Okay, it also has to do with how we can texture it, because texturing terrains is somewhat tricky. So let's actually, let's start with that actually. Okay, so to get started putting a texture on your terrain, so basically what we're going to end up doing is doing like a 3D paint to get the terrain down. It's really a pretty cool system, and you can get some really nice results out of it, even if you have not so awesome artistic chops like myself. Okay, you go in here, paint texture, and then, so this should say paint texture, not raise or lower terrain or anything else. And then you go into edit terrain layers. Okay, we're going to create a layer. And I just want to start the discussion off here. So there's a sand layer, I think. So if you type search for sand, here's sand albedo. Double click that. Okay, now here's what it does. It like instantly goes and puts that in everywhere on the ground. Now it won't do that with any other successive layer. So the idea is there'll be more. No, there could be a layer of rocks. There can be a layer of grass. Oh, I need some snow. Okay, whatever. You just keep adding the layers. And then all the other ones will have to be painted on or they won't affect the scene at all. But the first one goes on automatically. Now, am I going to need to bake the lighting to actually see anything here? That's really ridiculous. I actually can't see the texture at all. What is going on? All right, let's try. I guess I'm going to generate some lighting. So I'll leave you can leave the auto generate off and just click generate lighting when you want to suffer. I think it's going to take 7 minutes, seriously. Now 5 minutes, now 4 minutes. Okay, maybe it'll be faster. It's just a plane, guys. So I want to make a point to you about how the texture gets applied. So the issue I want to talk about is basically tiling. That's it. So your texture, no matter how big it is, you can get 4K textures these days. People use them. I don't on my laptop. Whenever I can avoid it, I try to stay away from them. But people do use them. It's a thing. Okay? But even if you have a 4K texture and you stretch it over a square kilometer, you know, it's going to look terrible when you're standing on the ground. It's going to be pixelated. You're just going to basically see huge blobs of color around you. It's not going to look, you know, you start with a photograph and it looks mind-blowingly nice, and then in the actual simulation it will look terrible. So the way you avoid that is you allow the textures to tile. Now, we've talked about tiling textures versus non-tiling before. These ones that have been brought in to texture the ground are always tiling textures. If you're going to look in and create your own, you should look for tiling textures for sure, because that's what we want to do. So basically, tiling means we're going to repeat the texture you put in at some intervals, just bump, up, row by row by row by row, and cover the whole thing like that. And I'm wondering if I'm ever going to be able to see it. This looks like it's going to give me problems. This is the second time today that I'm doing this, and I don't know why. Last time I didn't shrink. Oh wait, no, there it is. See there, I'm actually seeing some texture. Oh, there. But as soon as I just scroll back like one click, all right, you know what? You know, I haven't talked about this before. Let me. Actually, I want to get rid of the brush. Maybe I can get out of this mode. Let's maybe not even select the terrain at all. All right. You know, there's this thing called fly-through mode. Right, so fly-through mode is where you hold down the right mouse button and then you can use WASD. Did you guys run into that at all? Okay, this is pretty handy with terrains because a lot of the normal tricks, like you see, all the normal stuff works, but the thing is so huge, just one click of rolling your mouse now pops you back so you can't see anything right away. Okay, so, oh my, all right, that thing is done. All right, so here's what you do. If you right-click, WASD, now you can kind of fly through the scene. And I really can't make the point I want to make because, you know, this texture is just so indistinct until you get close. I'm really kind of surprised by this. All right, well, I thought this was going to be easy and fast. Surprise, surprise. Okay, let's get a more distinctive texture. Oh, another trick, since I mentioned that much to you, because terrains are big. You may find this is still too slow. If you hold shift, you'll fly really fast. All right. What's that?
The first person controller shift the run button.
Does it run? Yeah.
Left shift.
Left shift? Okay. I didn't even know. All right. Come on. What's going on here? Oh, here we go. All right. Okay, I need another texture, guys. Let's put another one in. Okay, so you're gonna need more than one too. So let's do it. Edit terrain layers. We need to create a new layer. Now let me just show you. So I'm pulling these. It's confusing. Like you open that up and it shows you every texture in the universe, and there's a lot now with all the standard assets in. How am I possibly navigating that? Let me show you the trick. First, learn what's there before you actually go looking for it. Okay. Go in the standard assets. If you browse down, this is actually reasonably well organized, unlike the window I just had, which was a flat list of every texture in the world. So if you go in here into environment, we got our trees here, we got our terrain assets here, we got water, yes, we will do water, okay, terrain assets, surface textures, here you go. These are the ones we had. Where did snow go? We used to have snow in here. Yeah, they definitely do change these up, because there used to be snow. Okay, we don't have snow, but we do have some other cool stuff. All right. So what do we got? We've got like a cliff rock texture, a muddy rock texture that also comes with normals, by the way, a real grassy texture, a like half grass, half rock texture, and a sand. Okay, now I think maybe the muddy rock one will be distinctive enough to show what I want. I'm not sure. Let's try. Okay, so it's called Mud Rock. Okay, so now we can go back over, edit, create layers, called Mud Rock. Okay, Mud Rock. Okay, here it is, Mud Rock. There we go. Boom, it's in. Okay, so now I can go here. So let's actually do some painting. So this is like not the painting, so you want to be artistic and delicate when you do this, unlike what I'm going to do now. So I just want to blast the whole terrain with the mud rock. So let me show you how you do that. I just want this nice hard brush. See, this one's got feathered edges. This one's just got a big monster hard edge. I want the brush to be big. That's my size of brush, like that. Yep. And I want opacity to be high so that it just completely replaces whatever's underneath as soon as I touch the mouse down. Okay? So this is how you blast in a new texture. And you can see, look at that. That looks just as awful as the other one. Let's see if we get... Okay. All right. Here we go. Let's get out of the... Selecting it. Okay. Do you see what the ground looks like now? What is this? It's tiled. That's the texture. That's how many copies it's needed with the current settings to cover the whole plane. It's repeated, repeated, repeated. Now, this is supposed to be rocky. Now, you might think the texture must just suck, but it doesn't suck. Of course it doesn't. If you get down close, you will see, oh no, it's actually quite decent, right? When you're close. But, first of all, look at that. Here's a tiling artifact right here. They should have a better tiling texture. And you can see it coming up there too, so that's very unimpressive. All right, but anyway, it is what it is. I'm getting everything I paid for, I guess, right? From the free standard assets. All right. Is this the right? Did I grab the right? Yeah, I think I grabbed the right thing. The colors just look weird. I hope this isn't. Not looking at the specularity layer or something else, am I? Oh no, yes, it is specular. Albedo and specular. Huh. All right, that's actually quite strange. Let me open that layer up. Yeah, now why does it look at that. Does that look like that? It really doesn't.
You got to throw that mud rock normal layer on there too?
I mean, I can, but I just don't understand. And it's got a weird name. You see, it says Mud Rock Albedo Specular. So albedo is usually the diffuse texture, and if you want a specular texture, that's normally a separate texture. They're playing some game here. All right, I'm going to go for a third. Let's go for a third texture. So I clearly have something to learn about this. Here we go, new layer. Okay, wait. Okay. Okay, don't understand that. Okay, let me come over here. Let's put another one in. Maybe the third time's a charm. This one also says albedo specular. What does that mean? I wonder if they mean that the specularity is baked in and they're warning you not to put a separate layer in. That could be. I'm going to put the grassy texture in. Grass Hill Albedo. That one just says albedo, so Grass Hill Albedo. Okay, this one. All right, let's go here. Now let's do the same thing. Going to get back and blast it with grass. All right. All right. Same sort of thing, same sort of effect. You can see if you get close enough, without. When you're close, it's not bad at all. It's quite a decent texture. It's just that it doesn't take much altitude before it becomes apparent how it's repeating. Okay, so a couple things you can do now. The first thing you can do is you can go to your eye height. Okay, so let's actually, all right. My plans are going out the window, but we have to go around the world once by the end of the week, no matter what. So all these points are kind of mandatory, so it doesn't matter all that much. Let's put a character in, and since I've gone this far now, let's go the whole 9 yards and get all the learning done. Okay, so if I go in here into my prefabs, my FPS controller, let's put it in, because this at the end of the day is what I'm going to do, right? Presumably, I'm going to run around. I'm in FPS shooter mode, right? All right, so let's get rid of the original camera now and start the thing up. Okay, so you can see. All right, so the first line of defense here is if you look at that and you're like, and you know your textures, and you're like, you know what? I don't actually need that much detail there, right? Oh, you know what? I wonder if my detail setting is affecting things on the terrain. I'm actually going to go mess with that. I wonder if that is synced somehow to the textures. That never actually occurred to me. Okay, so we'll do that in a second. But first point, if you look at that and say, I don't need that level of detail. Or sometimes even, it's supposed to be a little pebble, but when you're down there, it looks like a big rock because there's some kind of a mismatch between your eye height and the detail in the texture. Okay, you can go and just kind of, you can mess with the tiling, and sometimes that will help things a lot. Okay, that's the first thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is what games looked like in the 1980s, maybe even up to the early 90s, where you can kind of see this tiling going on all the time, right? And the real solution to it is, of course, not to use all one texture, right? You kind of hide the fact that tiling is always there, and if your eye is good, you will pick it up. But we can hide it, we can fool your eye by kind of painting different textures over one another, sometimes in a kind of a semi-transparent kind of a way, sometimes just painting hard over it to just kind of interrupt the pattern for your eye, okay? And that's the second and better trick that we use to make this work well, okay? All right, let me just, while I have it in my mind, see if I can make the textures look better. Didn't occur to me I was going to kill myself by turning this down, but maybe I did. Let's see. Okay, I have no idea. Didn't look like anything immediately popped in the... All right. Okay. I don't think I won anything by putting that back, but why not? Next issue. Down in here somewhere. Let's see if we can see the tiling control. Width, height. I'm immediately seeing how it used to be pretty visible, but I'm not seeing it at the moment. I think it is on this screen. Okay, it might have been moved to the individual terrain textures. So let me see. I'm going to edit terrain. Right here. Open up the layer. Okay, here's the tiling setting. Okay. So if you realize that, the pebbles are the size of boulders, or the boulders are the size of pebbles, I can definitely, maybe I can win something just by messing with how often the texture is tiled. Then you can come in here and mess with this, right? So go like this. Okay, I think. So it's like half a screen. There's the repeating texture, right? To that white spot. So half a screen. Did it really change all that much? Let me go back. Oh yeah, changed a lot. Okay, so we basically made it so that each repetition of the pattern occupies more physical space. That's a good thing. Let's just keep going. let's go till we can't stand it anymore. Eventually, we won't like what we're seeing. Good. I don't know. I think it looks all right. Actually, it'll be a mess. Okay, see it's starting to get blurry. Let's go back in. Yeah, see? Look at that. So why is it blurry? Well, it's blurry because they have an ugly choice. You know, they're either going to make it blurry or they're going to make it look like 1980s and show you all the pixels. You can really kind of almost see the pixels anyway, right? Okay, that's why they're blurring it. Okay, so that's too far. And then we can now just back it off. Okay, 50. 50, okay. You really want this as big as you can stand, given that you want it to look nice when you actually go in. That's still a bit too blurry, I think. And now the offset, again, is just, what that's going to do is it's just going to shift everything over a little bit. So if there was just something really, why would you need that? If there was just some really unfortunate coincidence with the way, you know, something's just lining up in a weird way for you, and if you realize that if the ground were just shifted over like half a meter, the problem would go away, this is what you look at, the offset, to fix that. All right, that I can maybe live with. Now you can see it's not all, you know, I've improved things quite a bit. It's not, from the ground's eye view. I mean, I almost want to say this is just fine. Now, it won't be fine forever, as you'll see in a minute, okay? But, I mean, just fine. What I mean is you don't see the checkerboard pattern anymore. Yeah? Do you? Is it obvious to you? This is actually would be acceptable to me, okay? Yeah, at the cost of maybe a little more blurring than you might want. You might not. You might want to push it in even more, then it'll be a little more checkerboarding. All right, but life is not going to stay good. I'll show you why. The next thing is, so we didn't put in all this complicated terrain just to have the terrain be a pancake, right? So we definitely, terrain usually means elevation changes. Let's make some elevation changes. Okay, so there are tools for this. So we go back to our terrain. Okay, it is the paintbrush tool, but now we want to go to raise or lower terrain, probably. This is a pretty good way to start. Okay, now for this, you definitely want a feather edge brush. Don't pick anything weird like the star. You're going to be really unhappy. Okay, now the brush should not be so big. It should probably not be so opaque either. Actually, you know, so the way I like to do it, okay, beginner here, if you guys have a better techniques, you can tell me. So I would like to get, so let's say my concept is I want to make a valley. I want to make a valley. It's going to be like it's high on the sides and low roughly in the middle. There'll be a little stream running down the middle. Okay, that can be my water. Okay. So I want the brush really big to start out with to just get the general contour right, and then I'll keep making the brush smaller and smaller and making smaller adjustments. That gets a better result for me than going in immediately with a fine brush and trying to get, work at the micro level and make things work properly. Okay, so what's going to happen is as I paint down here, you can kind of see what's going on. Okay, if it's happening too fast or too slow, you can mess with that opacity setting. It's still a bit fast for me. Oh wow, the opacity is 100. Didn't mean to have it like that. All right. Okay. Now, my point was that as soon as I drop back into the world with some elevation changes, I fall to my death. Look at that. Okay, not intended. Let's find my controller and raise it up a little bit. Okay, how's that? Ka-thunk. All right. Still looks good around me, but look at the hill. Right? You see what happens? As soon as there's the slightest bit of elevation change, as soon as either you can see a hill or you climb the hill and look back down, you will see the checkerboarding again. Okay? So So, plan B. Can't leave it like this. That's not good enough. So we can go back in. Let's go to painting textures. Let's bring in another favorite of mine. I don't have much time, so I'm sorry. I'm kind of trying to speed it up here. This grass rocky albedo. I like that one. It goes really well with the grass. So grass rocky. Okay, there it is. Let's pick it. Okay. So now what I can do is let's go. This is let's see. Where's the big offender? I'm not sure which hill was the big offender. So I'll pick one. Let's pick this one over here. Okay. Just to give you the idea. So you definitely see the checkerboarding, right? But if you go make your brush an appropriate size, turn the opacity down. Let me start it really low here. Then you can basically try to interrupt the pattern. Yeah, it's still way too fast. Control Z will undo. I really want it to come in really slowly. Okay, now if you zoom in there, you can see, well, first thing you can see is the new pattern I'm putting in has the same problem as the old pattern, so I need to fix it in the same way. Okay, so I should go and open the train layer up, and what did we end up with? 50 was it? What was it? 25? Okay, let's try 25. And you see it changing around. All right, so now you can kind of see, all right, you see how this could help. Okay, now with the big brush it doesn't help all that much because you're basically just replacing one checkerboard with another checkerboard. But the way you really do it, if you really wanted to make it nice, now you go in with a small brush and you interrupt the checkerboard by a brush that's much smaller than the checkerboard. So for example, okay, let's go in here, let's make my brush size tiny, okay, like this, right? So this is like the scale of the checkerboard. Now I can come in here and I can just bloop, just to mess it up for your eye. Right? It doesn't take all that much, and here some artistic sensibility really helps. That's one thing artists understand well, is what pulls your eye, what things are noticeable, and what things are not noticeable. And if you don't have that, you'll be kind of running blind here. But that's the idea. Okay, that's the main tool that people use still today. Now, on top of this, you're still going to have some grass. We're going to have some trees. We're going to have some other stuff going on that will also distract your eye in a big way from the checkerboarding. It's not just going to be what you're seeing right now. So you got to stay tuned for that one. Definitely not getting there for the next.
Those other brushes seem pretty cool too, where they help break it up. Those.
Oh, you like those? Yeah. So these are like kind of randomized ones. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, after toying with it,
Yep.
does offsetting like that second texture kind of help as well?
Oh, it probably would. Yeah, that's right. Just so the checkerboard wouldn't be so perfectly aligned, but it still is going to be a checkerboard. It's not going to help a ton all by itself. Other questions? Okay, we've got a lot more to do, but we have time. This is actually the single most important piece is being able to get some elevation differences. So, all right, we'll pick it up on Wednesday then.